Radio, and also Talk Grenada, there at 90.1. And those of you who are on the NDC Facebook page, we welcome you all to a beautiful Sunday afternoon with the Heartbeat today. Well, for today's program, we're not in studio today. We're out of studio, but it's the same Heartbeat. But for today's program, we will share with you a recent development in Barbados where Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell attended this really groundbreaking event, along with Prime Ministers of Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It was on Friday, and it was the CARICOM branch of Afixim Bank, now open in Barbados, the Africa CARICOM Import-Export Bank, expanding opportunities for African, Caribbean trade and investments. It is started off with $1.5 billion and expected to increase to $3.5 billion. Could this be the answer to the Caribbean? Could this be the answer to sourcing investment opportunities for Caribbean businesses? Well, we would hear shortly as we listen to the formal opening of this branch in Barbados, where Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell spoke. Stay tuned for a moment. Coming to you shortly.
I am equally pleased to introduce the next speaker, Prime Minister of Grenada from the Spice Isle. Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell is the 9th Prime Minister of Grenada following general elections in June 2022. He is the youngest person to become Prime Minister in Grenada. Prime Minister Mitchell is an attorney at law by profession. In addition to being Prime Minister, he holds the portfolios for finance, national security, home affairs, public administration, information, and disaster management. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Prime Minister Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam of Ceremony. Pleasant good afternoon to distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I think I should correct you by saying I'm actually not the youngest Prime Minister to have been the Prime Minister of Grenada. There was a former well-known revolutionary leader by the name of Maurice Bishop, who was, in fact, younger than me by an entire decade when he became the Prime Minister of Grenada. He was only about 33 years old at the time. So, subjectively, I may look like the youngest Prime Minister of Grenada. Your Excellency, Honorable Mia Mo Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados, and permit me if I say one of the most distinguished leaders, not just of CARICOM, but of the world. Thank you for inviting us and thank you for hosting us today. Colleague Prime Ministers, the great Comrade Ralph Gonzalez. Comrade Gonzalez, in listening to my brother's speech, it looks I may have to disappoint you on CK Bride, not in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but perhaps on the continent of Africa. Prime Minister Philip Pear from St. Lucia, pleasure to see you again. Your Excellency Chief Obasanjo, former President of the Republic of Nigeria, Mr. Rodinal Suma, CEO of the CARICOM Development Fund, and His Excellency Wamkele Mene, Secretary General of AFCITA. Your remarks today was inspiring, and I see you have taken concrete steps to bridge the divide between the diaspora and the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a distinct honor for me to be present this afternoon to make brief remarks. This afternoon, we are witnessing the convergence of two dynamic regions, the continent of Africa and the Caribbean, each blessed with unique strengths and resources. As we stand at this juncture, we cannot overlook or overemphasize the historic moment that we are witnessing today. Centuries ago, our ancestors were bound together through a painful history of transatlantic slavery. But today, we come together with a renewed sense of purpose and unity, ready to forge a new path towards progress and prosperity on our own terms, not on the terms of others. It is therefore my privilege to join my fellow heads of governments and our esteemed colleagues from the African Export-Import Bank and our distinguished brothers and sisters from the continent to commemorate this historic occasion that signifies the strengthening of the ties between Africa and the Caribbean. The establishment of the CARICOM branch office will undoubtedly amplify our collective efforts to harness the vast potential that exists in both regions, opening doors to new avenues of trade, cooperation, and deeper integration of our peoples. We have already identified sectors where we complement each other's strengths in critical development areas such as ICT, agriculture, renewable energy, the creative industries, and education. Our small island developing nations possess a wealth of natural resources and cultural diversity that can meet the demands of the African markets. Similarly, Africa's booming industries offer a plethora of opportunities for Caribbean businesses to expand their global footprint. Through joint initiatives and collaboration, we can drive sustainable growth and job creation, enhancing and deepening South-South cooperation, promoting economic resilience, and reducing our dependence on traditional trade partners. As we move forward, let us remember that this collaboration demands our collective effort and dedication. I therefore call on all of our governments, businesses, citizens, to actively engage with the Afrexim Bank's CARICOM branch, tapping into the wealth of experience, knowledge, and financial expertise that the institution holds. Having played a pivotal role in facilitating trade and investment across the African continent. Importantly, this collaboration also provides opportunities to foster cultural exchange, people-to-people connections, and mutual understanding. I therefore particularly welcome the announcement of the Diaspora Day homecoming in November. So through dialogue and shared experience, we can deepen our appreciation of each other's cultures and heritage, further strengthening the bonds between Africa and the Caribbean. In concluding, I express my sincere gratitude to the Afrexim Bank for its commitment to building bridges with us. I express my sincere appreciation for the leadership shown by the Honorable Mia Motley in ensuring that this office became a reality in quick time. Let us collectively seize this opportunity to forge ahead with determination and enthusiasm, knowing that together, Africa and the Caribbean can be stronger. And I end with a phrase that became very, very popular in Grenada under the youngest prime minister that Grenada has ever had. Forward ever. Forward ever. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister Mitchell. And also, thank you for your correction and the acknowledgement of the late Maurice Bishop. And may you continue to showcase the fountain of youth, certainly garnered from the spices of Grenada. Ladies and gentlemen, Prime Minister Decon Mitchell.
Welcome back to all of you who are on WeFM, Vibes FM, Spice Capital Radio, and indeed those who are on the NDC Facebook page. This was a presentation by Prime Minister, the Honorable Decon Mitchell, as he addressed the formal opening and launching of the Afixim Bank in Barbados. It's the Africa CARICOM Import-Export Bank, the answer to the Caribbean's financial needs and opportunities and relationship building. Well, the remaining program we would have with us very shortly Mr. David Steele. He is a returning Grenadian from the diaspora in the UK. He is on vacation and he is an educator in the UK. When we are through with this conversation, we will then invite the Honorable Ron Redhead, who is the Minister responsible for sports, culture, and youth affairs, where we will get an update on what's happening with Carnival. So at this time, let me invite Mr. David Steele. David, are you there? David, you may need to unmute.
Yeah, good afternoon,
Okay.
sir.
Welcome, David. Good of you to join the Heartbeat today and to agree to share with us, with our listeners, what you have been doing in the UK. Tell us something about your experiences out there. And you indicated that you're an educator in the UK. And how does education in the UK compares with what is happening in Grenada and the rest of the Caribbean? But first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Terry, I'm actually British born, but my parents returned to Grenada back in the mid-70s, and they brought me back with them. So being with them, I went on to school, completed my education at GBSS in the mid-80s, and became a member of the Royal Grenadier Police Force. And I spent 6.5 years there. Ironically, I did enjoy that job. And it was one of the things that over the years has taken me through what people need to know about their future, is finding out from a very young age what their skills and talents are, where they can place them, and where they can develop them and grow them. But I moved back to the UK in around 1990, and I just worked for private companies out there. But eventually I went back into education. I have to say back because as a police officer in Grenada, I worked with a lot of youth organizations, including the cadets of GBSS. I did some work with for a couple of years. So one of the things I did before I went into education was I decided to go back to school. I remember as a teenager, I had the impression that university wasn't for me. So in around 2010, I actually got myself into university and I completed my degree in community development and leadership. After which I found a position in a college in London, in South London, and I worked with them for the past 9.5 years. I've been with them. My position there was as a student development coach. So it's just seeing the students through the support of anything that they needed to, on advice and guidance that they needed for their future development. As far as, sorry, I think I ran over my question, actually.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
So yeah, currently, as you say, I'm a returning national. I'm not really returning right now, but I am thinking about it. I've come to the point where I'm thinking I need to return home. I need to come home because this is where I see as home. I've always seen this as home. And I've come to the point that I do need to come back and do something here with my own people rather than with others. The expertise, the talent, the commitment that I can put in here rather than out there. And to me, I think that we need it here. So it could be a year or so before I can say I'm quitting the UK and returning.
Great. Well, would you say that several Grenadians out in the diaspora, in the UK in particular, share a similar vision with you?
Yeah.
Of wanting to return and contribute to the country?
There are quite a few that I speak to, those who are of my age. Ironically, there are other Grenadians out there who are either born in the UK or born in Grenada, who I went to school with, and we meet on occasional basis, and we talk about, going home. It's the word that we use, or the phrase we use, is going home. Some of them have done already. I remembered about 15 years ago, one of them just called me one day and said, "That's it, I'm done, I'm going home." And I didn't believe him until he actually did it. And he's here now, and I still meet up with him. But there are others that decide they're going to maybe wait for a few more years, maybe wait for their pensions, or, or if they have something more concrete to come to. But for me, I just think it's my time. Everyone has their time. When they know that they need to make that change, make that move.
Absolutely. What do you think Grenada can do to better embrace the returning nationals who wish to contribute their skills, talent, resources, etc.?
In one word, embrace them as they come in. We have met up, and there are a few of us who speak about it. There are those who come here and they haven't been, it's sad to say, but they haven't been welcomed. And I'm a person who would speak honestly about something, the way I feel about something. I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel. And a lot of people have said they didn't feel welcome. There is this attitude of foreign, you come from foreign. And the thing is, even though we are out there, we still look at Grenada as home. It is home. We don't, a lot of us do not see, wherever you are, the UK, Canada, the United States, Europe, wherever you are, or wherever they are, we do not see those places as home.
Even if you were born in the UK, first, second, third generations, that feeling still exists.
Yes, because it depends on how you feel about the place yourself. For me, my formative years were here. I've got 2 brothers and 2 sisters who now reside in the UK. They've retired, but their young formative years were in the UK. As far as they're concerned, they're home. They do come out here sometimes, and they drop in and spend a few weeks, and then they go again. For me, I see this as home. And maybe on a wider context, the Caribbean as home, because I have friends from different islands around the Caribbean. that I've worked with, and some of them have already returned to their own islands. So apart from me coming back to Grenada, I'm also thinking of traveling and visit them, you know, so that my return is a much wider basis, really.
Right. Okay. Well, just to let you know, and all the other Grenadians, be it first, second, third generation out there in this vast diaspora, that Grenada has recently, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, established what is known as the Office of Diaspora Affairs. And I have been fortunate to be appointed the ambassador with such responsibilities. So the idea now is strengthening our embassies abroad, ensuring that there is full participation and representation through our embassies abroad, so that there is a stronger engagement with our nationals in the diaspora. And despite whether if you're first, second, third generation, etc., it makes no difference. You are Grenadian. Once your parents are Grenadians, irrespective as to where you're born, you are Grenadian. And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is determined to ensure that we have a stronger relationship and bonding with our diaspora folks out in the UK, Canada, entire North America, Europe, Caribbean, all over the world. We want to establish this stronger relationship because there is so much that the diaspora can offer, and by way of skills, talents, resources, you name it. Grenada needs it at this point in time so we can transform this nation based on the vision of Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and his administration. So I want to thank you for taking the opportunity to come on to the Heartbeat today to share just a little bit of what you're doing. But just finally, let me ask you, how do you see the education process in the UK compared to what exists in Grenada or in the Caribbean?
Well, for my time working in education and as a student development coach, we dealt with supporting students through finance, through advice and guidance, through housing information, through safeguarding, personal issues, family issues, whatever it is. There was always one of us around, part of our team around to support our students. Mm-hmm. Grenada is a smaller community. Obviously, it would be a bit different to do that because the phrase "everyone knows everybody" kind of comes to light. But I do think that a lot of the young people today who are in schools, who are in college, or maybe even in university, do need someone to speak to, and I'm not sure if that is in place, but these things need to be done because it's not just about the academics that's important. Their social life is also important. Every day we sent, our students went home in the UK, whatever situation they had at home, they would return to it. And if they didn't get the support that we gave them, then it will be like, as we say here, spinning top in mud. You're just going around in circles. And every day you'll be fixing the same problem you fixed the day before. So one of the things that I see that needs to be here is that we need to look at social settings of the homes. There is also parents. I always believe, and I have two sons, well, they're men now. I always believe parenting is the hardest job in the world. There is no manual that can be created that can teach anyone parenting. However, parenting does need commitment. And as a father to my boys, when they were growing up, I knew I had to get involved in everything they did, not just their education, but also their social life, to ensure And growing up in the UK obviously is different because we had racism, discrimination, and whatnot going on. But I had to make sure that I knew everything they were doing everywhere they were going. And one of the issues that we do have here is a lot of times parents don't have time. Okay, we agree with that. But sometimes we've got to make time. It is, like I said, a hard job to be a parent. You got to make time. I worked with an organization for about 5 years in London called 100 Black Men of London. It's originally an American organization. And we worked with young people from 10 to 16. And we also had a section for parents where we gave parents guidance on how to bring up their children. Again, no one is perfect. Nobody has the perfect manual to parenting. But we gave the advice based on what we spoke about, based on what we experienced, and speaking to the parents themselves, we gave them tips on what they can do. And basically there was training for them. And you could see that if a parent gets involved in their child's life growing up, you can see the difference. And growing up here in Grenada, in the community, if I did something wrong, you'd always hear somebody say, I'm going to tell your parents or your grandparents about it. So you're scared like hell. And that was the sort of policing that we had here. But I think we've gone past that. This is 20.
Tell me something, David. Would you be willing to have, let's say, a group of like-minded Grenadians out in the UK who are in the profession of education to be like mentors to different schools via Zoom? So in other words, kids who are having trouble in Grenada can feel certain that they can, make contact with a group in the UK who can provide mentorship to whatever issues they're having. And you having had the exposure of student mentorship from your studies certainly can be a great asset to Grenadian schools. Would you be willing to take on this challenge and find like-minded Grenadians out in the UK in that field to be available to students in Grenada?
Yeah, I see we can look into that. We can look into that and get that moving. And I mean, we're online nowadays, so it's not an expensive activity to do anymore. It's just the time difference, I suppose. That's the problem. But apart from that, yeah, we can do that kind of thing.
Great. Well, I would certainly, with consultation with our Minister for Education, with his approval, we certainly would need to continue this conversation. And also on the topic of adopting a school. Lots of our schools have several needs beyond just the physical needs. So I'll be chatting with our Minister of Education to get his authorization and approval so we can move in this direction quickly by resourcing and equipping our schools with competent, qualified, experienced individuals like yourselves from the UK and other parts of the world in being available to our students throughout their life cycle in schools throughout Grenada. So I want to thank you for being on the program today, and we'll be in touch again very shortly. So let me just give you 30 seconds for any closing remarks which you would have at this time.
30 seconds. You never have enough time to say what we want to say.
That is true.
But I do believe that Grenada, the youth, together with the rest of the Caribbean, and I always look at, to be honest, I don't look at Grenada as an individual community anymore. The Caribbean needs to be involved for us to move forward. And just like Europe, if we were to work together, every Caribbean island was to work together, even those with other languages, French, Spanish, Dutch, we can make the Caribbean a very proactive place to live and very developing. And as we've seen from the recording, Africa wants to get involved with us. it's all the more the merrier.
Great.
It'll be a very
Well,
interesting future to look forward to.
yes, indeed. The future looks pretty bright for Grenada and CARICOM. And with the assistance of our diaspora folks throughout the world, we
Yes.
can make it happen. We can make it happen. People are anxious to help, anxious to assist in just about every area of life. So let me thank you very much, David, for being on today, and we certainly will be in touch. Coming up shortly is the Minister Ron Redhead, who is responsible for youth, sports, and culture, and I'm sure he would want to contribute further to what you have just shared there. So thank you, and let me at this time welcome the Honorable Ron Redhead. Honorable Redhead, I hope that you are there.
Yes, I am, Terry. I hope that
Great.
you can hear me loud and clear.
Lovely, fantastic. Welcome to the Heartbeat once again.
Thank you.
Good of you to take from your busy schedule to be with the Heartbeat today. I know Carnival is in the air and the excitement of the various shows, etc., etc. But I just would like you to comment briefly on some of the statements made by David Steele, and also on the aspect of possible mentorship and adopt a school program, because the mentorship is all to do with youth in schools. And as the Minister of Youth, that falls a bit squarely in your lap, along with the Minister for Education. So your thoughts on that comment would be certainly valued.
Yeah, Terry, so thank you very much. I listened intently to the conversation. I think it's very timely and it is needed. At the ministry, I believe that what we want to do is to build partnerships or collaboration of different stakeholders. So certainly having Mr. David involved in a program like that, or us discussing how we can put out a program like that, I think is critical, and it's something that we can certainly dive into.
Fantastic. And the Adopt a School program, well, someone out in Texas has taken up that challenge, and she is going guns with collecting school supplies for a particular school out in St. Andrew, the Bel Air Government School. So what I'm trying to do is to encourage Grenadians throughout the diaspora to adopt a school. And your team, your committee, look after that school.
Yeah.
For how long? Well, that's up to you all. But I'm sending out that challenge of mentorship one, and also adopt a school program. So your ministry certainly is going to be fully involved in giving the vision and direction for these thoughts, along with the minister responsible for education. But for today, it's all about Carnival.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts so far on the previous shows? And yesterday, I think you had the kids Carnival Frolic.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the shows so far that have been held?
Well, Terry, so far so good. This year in particular is the test to prepare for the 50th. So far so good. The evolution is not a single event, but certainly a process. So the evolution of Spice Mass is going pretty okay. We have seen tremendous changes throughout. We are seeing some good signs. Of course, there are some gray areas that we have to fine tune and fix, certainly into next year and beyond. But nonetheless, I can tell you so far what I've seen, excellent competition. In particular, one of the things that I wanted to change was the relationship between stakeholders, and in particular, the artists who are making the carnival product, essentially, artists, mass bands, etc. Was try to improve the relationship there. There's still some work to do. As with everything in life, building a relationship takes some time, takes some effort, but I am very confident that so far we have done an excellent job in changing the outlook, bringing back some respect and dignity, certainly to the stakeholders, and working with them in a meaningful way to change the dimensions of our carnival.
Great. What would you say was different in the show yesterday with the Kiddies Carnival Frolic?
Yeah. Well, I thought it had some more people. It finished a little too late for my liking, but I think the quality of the young Calypsonians participating in the event speaks very, very well for the future of Calypso. It speaks to the work that is being done, and I want to, in a serious way, commend people like Teacher Eddie, Neil Ferguson, and others who are well involved in planning and preparing some of the young people to take up the baton when it's their turn.
Fantastic. And of course, you have the great anticipated show tonight, the Queen Show.
Yes.
So much talk about the Queen Show, and now it's on the heels of being presented to the people of Grenada. What are your thoughts on that show?
Well, I'm looking forward. I think that it's going well. I wouldn't tell you who my preference is tonight. I would like to leave it
No, don't.
I would like to leave it up to the judges, definitely.
Absolutely.
But all of the participants, all 7 of them, have shown their strength, and I think we must go out in our numbers as Grenadians and support them. This in particular, the upsurge, and let me commend those who were involved in the preparatory work leading up to the actual hosting of the Queen Show thus far. But in particular, it speaks to the government's vision. Now, one of the things that from the onset, and I could recall sitting on your program, Terry, a couple of Sundays back, speaking to what we want to do different, in particular, highlighting Queen Show. So, for example, the introduction of scholarships for the participants who score in the first top 3. And I can tell you, I do currently hold discussions, wondering whether or not we should include all 7 of the participants, given that it's only 7, it's under 10, and certainly something as education should not have any boundaries. And whether or not people come first, second, third, there will be price variations, but something as education, whether or not it should not reflect government's overarching policy that a child is a child and the ability to pursue further studies should be included for all. So it's something that we are still juggling with, and I feel confident that I can make a presentation to Cabinet for consideration of all of the participants to cover the 10% out of the 90% that all Grenadian students will get from places like SGU, that sort of thing, UE, etc., etc. But in a nutshell, Terry, I want to spend some time talking about Queen Show and to infuse in the public's mind what is the government's thinking out of that. Now, currently, we do not have an elected representative on the Spice Mass board representing solely pageantry or Queen Show events, etc. One of the things that we are discussing is to build out a Queen Show association so that you give it some life. The whole question of pageantry, the whole question of etiquette, and how we build that out in our young ladies, the professionalism that goes with it, its contribution certainly to the tourism industry, looking at it from that angle, and also being able to forge a deep democratic process in electing or selecting, rather, the parish queen representative. So I'll tell you what I mean by that. So for example, if there is a Queen Show or pageant association, you would have an elected member representing on SMC's board, and then you would be able to hold a series of sessions or events to pick the various parish representatives. So for example, in St. George, you would be able to possibly have 2, 3, 4 individuals, and they go through 2 days of selection, whether it is stakeholder groups, etc., etc. And that makes for a better choice at the end in terms of the final. It shouldn't just be left up to a small committee based on observation over the years, but it should include a nice democratic process. And it gives sponsors, for example, different variation to choose from so that they would know when the final choice is made that it's top quality, top notch, and we intend to take this further. In addition to that, we should not only see pageantry as a national event, but how do we get the winner of our National Queen Show beyond the shores of Grenada? So these are some of the things that I believe we should be discussing. And around Queen Show, pageantry, etc., And it's so far some of the thinking that the government have. Of course, as with everything else, this year we would wait for it to come. Of course, today is the day. Tonight actually is going to be the night. And I wish all the participants, all those who are contributing to their preparations, I wish them all the very best tonight, and may the best person win.
Fantastic. Would there be anything unusual or addition to the show tonight?
Well, I think we should wait and yeah, I think we should wait on the night and see. But the young participants promise certainly to be of good quality, and I am confident that they are doing their best and have done their best so far. And I look forward to their performances tonight. And as I said, may the best team win.
Absolutely, so indeed. And the show starts at 8 p.m. on time?
8 p.m. 8 p.m. 8 p.m.
All right. What I thought was a good idea was the appearance which they made at the semifinals out in St. Andrew.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Again, it's a process to help market it and to help promote them. So far, the queens are of top notch, and I think it's good if you have a good product, you must showcase it and put it out there.
Yep. Absolutely, so indeed. All right. Before we go to Monday Night Mass and how do you plan to unfold it, do you want to chat about any prior other upcoming shows?
Well, yes, definitely. We cannot refuse to mention Groovy and Soca Monarch.
Exactly.
And Terry, of course, you can feel the pulse on the ground, and the anticipation for this year's Groovy and Soca Monarch, I think, is going to be highly competitive. I must say commendations to all of the artists and their maturity. I honestly believe that if this spirit of working and having genuine competition pulls through, then I think it augurs well for the future of soca and groovy in particular. I mean, it's not to say that we should take away from calypso, because that is another conversation, certainly after Carnival, I think that we should have with all stakeholders as to how do we keep the history and interest around calypso or the mashgra alive. So that's something that we really need to have some final words on. But I think for this year, it's showing some signs of promise. Definitely more people turned out in the semifinals than last year. And we are hopeful that more people turn out in the finals in particular, as the Calypso finals in progress. But I am particularly looking forward to Groovy and Soca Monarch. The tunes, Terry, this year, excellent stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely, so indeed. What about Panorama?
Of course. Pan is something that we are keenly interested in. I think that coming from the hiatus of the 2 years from COVID-19 and regaining their strides and their rhythm, so to speak, I think the Pans, they are going to do well this year, demonstrating their own discipline and commitment. Nights after nights, you can pass in the town of St. George, for example, and you hear the teams, they're practicing and so on. So they are very much anticipating that, and we look forward to having it on August 12th. Now, let me just say this, Terry, that on August 11th, the government of Grenada and the Pan Association is going to have, for the first time, whether it's a gentleman's agreement or if we sign off on the actual MOU completely, by that time, we are going to do a public agreement in terms of developing Pan. So we have completed the reviews of the draft MOU between the Pan Association and the government of Grenada, and it is all geared towards the development of Pan, introducing it in schools, ensuring that we build out the structures for having Pan tuning and learning Pan being taught throughout the length and breadth of Grenada. So we are going to improve our own capacity locally here to tune Pan, etc., etc. It will involve the procuring certainly of equipment, that sort of thing, to ensure that we have the best so that we can lead out the program in a national way. But, you know, it augurs well. So we're really looking forward to that. And certainly, as I mentioned, everything is geared towards the build-up to the 5th year. So what we are doing now is how we see culture. We believe that the state must take a stake in the developmental aspects of the product that we promote and showcase out there to the world.
Right.
And as such, the most critical thing for us is about building out the institutions that will be able to lead the, I won't want to use the word revolution, but lead the uptick, the increase, the evolution of the product that we currently now project. And this is why Spice Mass 2023 was listed as, advertised, tagline as the evolution, because we believe that seen as an evolution is not just an event, one-off, but a process. We believe that now is the ideal time to start that process of improving and evolving our culture.
All right. Now, the practicing of the various steel bands. I know you have one in town, one in Lagoon Road. The practice sessions in itself, it's like free music that the public can enjoy. Is there thoughts of maybe piping that music onto the streets even during practice sessions so that you can start bringing some life into the town area for tourists and locals alike?
Well, it's certainly a work in progress, and it's a good idea, Terry, that you're raising. I wouldn't want to preempt PAN Association or SMC in terms of the actual rollout of the product. But what I would say is that we certainly welcome every and any good suggestion that can continue to improve PAN and demonstrate its prominence in a serious way throughout the length and breadth of Grenada. So definitely, it's worth some thought and to see how we can roll that out. Of course, in a sense, bringing PAN to the streets, that is something that we believe in. I think earlier on this year, PAN Association had something called PAN on the sun or in the sun or something like that. And it was very well attended. I think the people want that kind of thing because, again, sweet pan music is good music, rhythm, etc., etc. And it's always in line with what we want. There is talk that we would bring some pan activities to the Kirani James Boulevard. So part in Ministry of Mobilization, Implementation and Transformation's own agenda as a ministry was to prepare certain venues to lead in the transformation that is required. But definitely it's worth the investing in terms of the idea that you gave. And I think it's something that can be taken up.
Great. Well, Monday Night Mass. Are we going to, can you explain what would be the logistics for Monday Night Mass?
Right. Well, around the idea or issue of logistics, one of the challenges that we have currently had to do with controlling the amount of trailer trucks that
that's an issue
on the road. Yeah, it is an issue. Unfortunately, this is something we inherited. Grenada's roadway is not that expansive and therefore can only really accommodate a few of the trucks to articulate in and around. And to make the experience one that brings out more of the revelry as opposed to big trucks and the risk that it poses, certainly is something that we have looked at. As it speaks to the exact logistics, Spice Mass is going to give in the coming days as these events occur, the exact experience and the exact certainly responsibility for the mass bands and what patrons can expect, how they would attend to these things. But it's something that we want to build out. I can tell you that I had a conversation with a young man who was interested or actually has qualifications in night mass type of activities, right? So we discussed with him the potential of improving Monday Night Mass. So some of the recommendations I am confident that he made may not be implemented this year due to time constraints, but definitely next year we are going to incorporate some of the ideas. And it speaks volumes to the amount of wonderful Grenadians who are around And once they have the opportunity to be involved in a genuine, open way, not any hidden agenda, but genuinely is interested to contribute, and is not just seeking an economic safe haven, but to contribute to the development of the culture, it speaks to the volume of that. So we did have that discussion. I passed him on to SMC CEO, and I await certainly the recommendations, in particular for next year, because given the constraints this year, it may be a little difficult to incorporate and implement all of the wonderful ideas.
All right. So the Monday night mass, would they start as usual from the Grand Dance area and make their way into town?
I don't have the exact route, and therefore, Terry, I wouldn't want to get into it. I don't have it in front of me. I do apologize, but I wouldn't want to get into it to confuse anybody. So I would say leave it up to Spice Mass to make the pronunciations on that. But definitely, the intention is to not have the route long and drawn out, but where you can get the best of what Monday Night Mass, for example, has to offer in a controlled environment, in an environment that is managed efficiently, so that we can reduce congestion, we can reduce the potential for bands to be inundated of other people who are not competing in their bands and just throwing on a t-shirt and jumping, etc. Because we have to learn to manage that. Remember, Monday Night Mass is something that is actually being judged. And therefore, if people are investing in the package that is sold, one has to almost guarantee that they will have the opportunity to compete fairly and justly. I wouldn't be sabotaged or prohibited from competing freely and fairly. So we have to look at how, in the past, I know they put chains, etc., but you have to look at how you manage that night mass in particular, because it's a cause for concern based on what we have seen.
Yes, indeed. And let me just suggest that the various bands, starting off from Grand Dance, the wait at Tropicana sometimes is really, really uncomfortable. And it may be a good idea for some of the bands to stagger. Who is in Grand Dance, who Belmont, let's say probably Lagoon Road. So at least the folks who assemble at Tropicana, including the judges, we all wouldn't have to wait that long before we can see the first band.
Well, definitely, it's a good recommendation. And as I said, Terry, part in what has to happen is the efficient management of the various events. Knowing fully well that we would not get everything right, there will be room for improvement. That we accept. Certainly, it's not a perfect institution, and we are not striving more so for perfection. What we are striving to do is to be efficient in our presentation of the Carnival product. So I can tell you, it's worth a shot and an idea to be able to work out how the bands, whether or not you need to have the walkie-talkie to then call them, tell them start proceeding, now in the next 10 minutes, etc., so that you have a smooth flow. So there should be a point person, in my view, as to how we roll that out. But again, as I said, I think Spice Mass as a body is going through their own mechanisms in terms of how they are going to roll out the various events. As minister, particularly, I am dealing with policy of it. And certainly from this standpoint, given the limitations with roadways, etc., the policy dictates that SMC becomes creative and they work with stakeholders to ensure that there is a very smooth flowing of the various bands so that they can be judged properly and in time, so that people can really enjoy it and it doesn't become long and boring and drawn out, but gives you a very wonderful, exciting experience of what Spice Mass has to offer.
Well, that's great. And hopefully, as the years roll on, we can probably have flotillas on the waterfront to accommodate these bands, rather than remaining
the 50th can do all kinds of things, Terry. So certainly, yes, but it's certainly a wonderful idea. And I must say, on the show here, you raised this with me last year when we came from Carnival. And the idea of it and the concept is very, very creative. So let me say that I am confident that it's something we can look into in terms of the floating stage. I do understand that something like that was tried, if not long past, but recently. So probably what we need to do now is to work out the requirements, structures, whether or not we need private sector support to bring in some stuff, etc., and collaborate with state, whether through concessions, etc., build the actual platform and work it from there, or whether or not this is something SMC itself will be interested in creating to help bolster what we are going to do next year. But nonetheless, Terry, I could tell you, flotillas or not, is going to be a wonderful experience next year in particular because it represents maturity on Grenada's path in reaching 50 years of our independence.
Fantastic, because I have seen it work beautifully in Amsterdam. As you know, Amsterdam is under sea level, so they have lots of water in all the large, huge drains. What we will call a river, they call it a drain. And they would have these flotillas with, you know, all sorts of entertainment on them. So maybe you're going to make probably an approach to the Dutch government and ask for their assistance in providing you with some flotillas.
Well, it's what to try. It's what to try. It's what to try. I'm certainly interested in seeing something like that, and I'm certain other Grenadians, the vast majority of us, will be as well.
Yeah, or maybe some diaspora folks maybe decide to invest in these flotillas and do something as a venture, you know, in Grenada for Carnival next year or two.
Right, and it's something we can work with them on because I know Canada, you know, Toronto, Montreal, New York, everybody is excited to come in for the 50th and in particular to celebrate Carnival next year as well.
Definitely. Now, Tuesday, Fancy Mass. What are the plans for Tuesday?
Right. Again, I don't have the exact schedule in front of me, but I would say that going back to what was spoken about, your limited mass bands are limited according to SMC to 2 of the large trucks, the trailers, but you are entitled to have other vehicles, smaller vehicles, as you see fit to be able to organize your drinks, etc., through your bands. But in particular, Fancy Mass is something that we have to continue to discuss. And how does it fit into the whole aspect of tradition? Something that we are going to fix for next year in particular. It was raised last year, and I am a bit disappointed that we couldn't get all of it right. But the clashing of national events should not be encouraged, right? So Carriacou, Grenada, Rainbow City, all these other events, when they are happening, it must be placed on a calendar on a day for itself so that we can have a smooth flow of all of our national events. This is our biggest festival, and therefore, from a cultural standpoint, something in particular I want to leave us with. If we say Spice Mass, where is the cuisine aspect of this festival? So it's something that we want to build out, and I believe that Rainbow City provides an excellent platform to build out that aspect of our cuisine and the different spices, etc. We'll do that, right? St. Andrew Bread Basket, certainly next year, it's a project we can work on.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so very much, Honorable Ron Redhead. As we conclude, let me just say goodbye to those listening on WeFM, Vibes FM, and also Spice Capital Radio and Talk Grenada. We will just continue for a minute or two on the Facebook. So those who are on radio, feel free. You can join us on the Facebook feed. So, Honorable Redhead, just give me your closing comments at this point in time as we close the program. Time has certainly caught up with us already.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Terry, let me just say that I want to wish all the participants and those competing in the various events of Spice Mass their very best. I was at the Jab Jab Fest. Interestingly, It's the second time I visited Jab Fest, but we had to crown the winner. Let me just congratulate Temptress. I think as a female artist in this game, she is showing some serious ability. And I wish her all the best in her future endeavors. I want to say and encourage that next year in particular, Terry, we are going to make studios a bit more accessible, that which the government has control over, to young people so that they can freely express themselves, but do it at least on quality equipment so that for the 50th, the creativity should be heightened. People would get better opportunities. We are building the music lab in Carriacou, and once that is completed, we will then be able to roll out that project. So there are some exciting things ahead, but in particular for Spice Mass 2023, I wish everyone a safe and enjoyable Spice Mass. Remember, do not overdrink, don't drink and drive, and leave the weapons at home. I think the young people have a great sense of their ability to enjoy themselves without engaging in violence. And I want to continue to commend the Royal Grenadier Police Force on their no tolerance stance against violence and abuse of the opportunity to go out and have fun. Their ability to manage the situation in the country is going to be critical and will be put under the microscope. And I think thus far, you're doing a wonderful job. And I want to commend the hierarchy of the RGPF and all the officers involved, even the traffic wardens who are providing the service of ensuring that traffic buildup is is reduced and the vehicles can flow smooth on our roadways.
Thank you very much indeed. The Honorable Ron Redhead, Minister responsible for youth, sport, and culture. It's good of you to join us on the Heartbeat today. And let me thank Mr. David Steele, Grenadian educator in the UK, who is visiting Grenada at this time. And we spoke about the commitment of mentorship and also a doctor school program, which certainly going to be advanced through the Ministry of Youth, Sport and Culture and also Ministry of Education. I want to also thank Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell for his presentation in Barbados Friday gone on the launch of a Fixim Bank, which is now open in Barbados to provide services to CARICOM. The bank is starting off with $1.5 billion and expected to increase to $3.5 billion in meeting the opportunities and embracing the CARICOM African togetherness. Thank you very much for being part of the Heartbeat today, and we'll catch up with you next Sunday. Do enjoy your carnival, and remember to be safe at all times. Thank you. Have a great Sunday afternoon. Goodbye.